Now, before we proceed with actually solving problems in dynamics, we will first discuss a very useful tool that will aid us in solving problems in dynamics. Now, when we are solving problems using Newton's law, it is useful na makita muna natin lahat ng forces acting on the object. Now, one tool that will help us visualize ano yung mga forces acting on an object is the tool we call free body diagrams. So, free body diagrams are diagrams that shows the body that is free of its surroundings. So, mag-isa lang siya with arrows showing the magnitudes and directions of all the forces acting on the object. So, let us consider this situation here. You have a box that is pushed by the person. Now, kung gusto natin ma-visualize ano yung forces acting on this box here, we can use free body diagrams. So, for this particular example, ang free body diagram ng box will look like this. So, ito siya. So, your body is represented by this dot in the center. Tapos, itong arrows natin represents all the forces acting on the object. So, we have the force applied by the person. Tapos, you have static friction preventing yung motion ng object. And then, you have the normal force na inexert nitong surface on our object. And then, you have the weight of the object. So, this is an example of a free body diagram. So, how do we actually draw free body diagrams? So, let us demonstrate how to do this by looking at this situation here. So, you have boxes A and B. Tapos, they are connected by a string that passes through a pulley. Okay, yung A natin is resting on this surface here. But yung object B is just hanging dito. So, how do we draw yung free body diagram nitong objects natin? Objects A and object B. So, let's start muna with the free body diagram of object A. Now, the first step in drawing a free body diagram is to represent yung object natin, object A, as a point. So, we will represent A as a single point. Now, this is in particular kung gagamitan natin siya ng Newton's laws. Now, merong ibang equations later, like torque, na useful na idodraw natin talaga yung object. But if we are going to apply free body diagrams sa Newton's law, we will represent the object as a single point. So, ang ating object A, ito na siya. Isang point lang siya. Lahat ng mass is nakakoncentrate doon sa single point na yon. That's how we represent it for application sa Newton's law. And then, the next step is to draw lahat ng forces acting on our object as arrows. No? So, yung vectors, usually, graphically, they are represented using an arrow kasi meron siyang magnitude and meron siyang direction. So, sketch lang naman ito. Hindi nagmamatter yung length ng arrows natin. But we will use arrows to represent yung forces acting on object A. So, naturally, what we need to do here is to identify ano yung forces acting on object A. Okay, so first, yung pinakamadali, we will assume that object A has mass. And kung meron siyang mass and is near a planet, meron siyang weight. So, the weight in this case, if this is near the surface of the Earth, ang weight niya is always directed downward. So, we will draw an arrow pointing downward and this will represent yung weight niya. Now, since meron tayong isa pang object, meron tayong object B dito, meron din siyang weight mamaya, it is useful to specify kaninong weight ito. Okay, so we will put a subscript that is A to indicate na ito yung weight ni object A. Okay, so that's one force. Another force is meron tayong string, di ba? May string tayo that is stretched. So, meron din siyang tension. So, we will draw the tension force. Again, the tension force is away from the object towards the length of the string. So, we will draw an arrow from our object here, natuldok, arrow to the right. So, this will represent the tension force doon sa ating object. Okay, so we can put also subscript A to specify na ito yung tension on object A. Okay, next, we note na the object is resting on a surface. So, meron tayong dalawang forces that acts kung nag-i-interact yung object natin with a surface. And one of those forces is the normal force. So, the direction of the normal force is always perpendicular sa ating surface. So, kung ito yung surface natin, perpendicular yung normal force. So, we will draw an arrow that is upward, perpendicular doon sa ating surface. So, again, to specify kaninong normal force ito, this is the normal force on A. Another force that exists kung may interaction yung object natin with the surface is friction. Now, dito sa diagram, we can assume na hindi nagmo-move yung objects natin. So, the friction that is acting on this object is the static friction. Now, ang tendency to move ng object is to the right kasi hinihila siya nitong tension na ito. So, in order to oppose the motion, the static friction should be on the opposite direction. So, to the left. So, we will draw a arrow to the left representing yung ating static friction. Again, to specify, lagyan natin ng subscript na A para this is the static friction on A. So, ito na. This is now the free body diagram on object A. So, wala naman atang ibang pang forces acting on A. So, this is now the free body diagram ng A. So, ganun lang. Represent your object as a point. Take note of all the forces acting on your object. Tapos, draw them using an arrow, no, to represent their direction. Tapos, lagay lang natin yung magnitudes nila as labels dun sa ating arrows. Okay? So, ganun lang ka-simple gumawa ng free body diagram. Now, let's continue and let's draw yung free body diagram nung object B. Box B. Okay? So, again, first step, represent your object as a dot, single dot. And then, let's list down lahat ng forces acting on B. So, we will assume that B has a mass. So, meron din siyang weight. And the weight is always downward kapag you are near the surface of the planet. Okay? Again, we've put a subscript dito na B to indicate na ito yung weight ni B. Para hindi natin sila ma-confuse kung kaninong weight pa yan. So, magkaiba ito sila. So, dapat magkaiba yung symbols nila. Since object B is not interacting with our surface, di ba, hindi siya nakadikit. So, wala tayong normal force. Wala din tayong friction force. So, what's left is the force from this string here, which is the tension force. So, ang direction niya is towards the length of the string, that is upward. Okay, so we can now label this as TB. However, we mentioned last time na if it is the same string, then the tension on both ends of the string is the same. So, kapag TA ito siya, then TB should be equal to TA. No? So, dapat pareho lang yung magnitude nila. Now, one thing to do this is to make sure na pareho yung symbol na ginamit natin for both to show that they are equal. So, what I can do here is delete all of this. Delete natin yung TA. Tapos, we can call this simply T. T na lang din yung tawag natin dito. Okay? So, I believe ito na yung free body diagram nung object B. Wala nang ibang forces. So, again, ang bago dito is we should use the same symbol for magnitudes that are the same. And since this is tension force and it is the same string, so we use the same symbol. In this case, T yung symbol na ginamit natin. So, that's how you create free body diagrams. So, let's try doing one more example. Okay, so let's consider this example. Again, you have two boxes. This is box A. This is box B. Tapos they are connected with two strings. Ito yung first string passing through two pulleys dito sa taas. Tapos you have another string here. Okay, so they are connected by both. Now, box B is being held up, pushed up by this person here. So, merong ina-apply na force itong person na ito. Okay, so again, same thing. How do we draw yung free body diagrams for each of these boxes? So, let's start with A. So, again, first step, let us represent the box with a dot. Tapos, let us list down all the forces acting on object A. So again, since A has mass, so meron tayong weight. And the direction is always downwards if you are near the surface of the planet. Okay? So again, we've specified na kay A ito siya na weight. Okay, so what else? So our object A is interacting with this surface here. Meron tayong forces exerted by a surface. So one of which is what we call the normal force. So merong normal force dito. So again, the direction is perpendicular from the surface. So ganito yung surface natin. Ganun yung direction. Okay, so this is the normal force. Let's specify normal force of A. Okay, what else? We also have friction. So since yung object natin is not moving, so we expect na static friction yung friction applied dito sa object A. Now, yung tendency ng object A, just by looking at it, we can see na yung tendency niya to move is pa ganito. Okay? So, in order to prevent that from happening, a static friction should be opposite that. So, ganito dapat yung direction ng static friction natin. Again, parallel to the surface, tapos opposite dun sa tendency ng motion. Okay? So, let's label it static friction on A. Okay. Now, in addition to that, we have two strings here, two stretched strings. So, we have this one and this one. So, let's focus first on yung tension on this string here. So, the direction is upward. So, since may dalawa tayong string, let's label this tension 1. Tapos, i-label natin yung isa na tension 2. So, the other is on this direction. So, yung direction is towards the length of the string. So, to the right yung ating tension 2. Okay. So, this is now, I believe wala na ibang forces. This is now the free body diagram ng ating object A. Okay? Next, let's draw yung free body diagram ng object B. Again, represent the object as a single dot. And then let's list down lahat ng forces acting on the object. So, let's start with the most obvious. Meron siyang mass, so meron din siyang weight. And the direction is downward. This is the weight of B. Again, we specified it by putting a B subscript. So, kay B yan siya na weight. What else? It is also connected to this string here. Okay, connected siya dito sa string na ito. So, it will experience a tension force to the left. Now, if you look at this, again, meron tayong rule na the tension on both ends of the string is the same. So, same yung tension dito, same din yung tension dito. And from the free body diagram ng A, we've labeled yung tension na yun as T2. So, to show na pareho sila, let's use the same symbol, T2, dito. Okay? That way, we can indicate na pareho yung magnitude ng dalawang forces na yun. Okay, that's good. Next, we have another tension here. So, merong upward na tension. And since, again, if it is the same string, same yung magnitude nila. So, in A, we've labeled that as T1. So, to show na pareho sila ng magnitude, let's also label this as T1. And then, finally, we have this person here. Yung person na ito is pushing the box upward. Okay, so let's draw that. Now, if you look at yung ating free body diagram, meron na tayong upward na arrow. Now, kung dagdagan pa natin dyan, let's say ganito, medyo confusing na siya, di ba? So, what we can do, as a shorthand, instead of drawing another arrow, sabihin natin na idagdag na lang natin siya sa magnitude. So, ibig sabihin, yung applied force ng person is also upward. Okay, so that's how we use it para mas madaling maintindihan yung ating free body diagram. Okay? So this is now the free body diagram of object B. Okay? So ganun lang. This will be very useful pagpunta natin sa Newton's law kasi we will be adding all the forces on an object. We will introduce yung concept ng net force and very helpful na makita natin yung directions and magnitudes nung forces acting on an object. So this is something that we should learn how to use.